thank you so much for being with us today for this great conversation. So my name is Mélanie Valcin. I'm the president and CEO of United for Literacy, formerly known as Frontier College. Let me start by thanking the land that provides us with food, shelter, and all we need for life. I come to you from Tiohtià:ke, the unceded lands of the Kanien'kehá:ka Mohawk Nation. Tiohtià:ke is a gathering place for many First Nations, and we recognize that the Kanien'kehá:ka are the custodians of these lands and waters. As we meet today to discuss literacy and future-ready skills, we are reminded that Indigenous peoples have lived, learned, and innovated on these lands for thousands of years. Their deep knowledge systems, languages, and traditions offer essential perspectives as we imagine how the future of learning and opportunity can benefit every one of us. So this land acknowledgement grounds our discussion in both truth and responsibility. As we explore how literacy equips individuals to adapt, grow, and be resilient in a rapidly changing world, we recognize that meaningful inclusion must begin with respect for the original stewards of this land and honor the ongoing contributions of Indigenous communities. Now, let me tell you a little bit about United for Literacy. Some of you might know us, some of you might not. So we're a national literacy organization working coast to coast to coast to offer free literacy programs to adults, youth, and children who need extra support to succeed at school, at work, or in life in general. Along with our hundreds of dedicated volunteers and partners, we are working in our daily lives, we're working to bridge Canada's literacy gap. So what is this literacy gap, you might ask? So for children, it occurs when a child falls behind their peers in reading skills. For adults, it can be the difference between knowing how to read a handful of words and the skills needed to find a sustainable job. We see the impact of our collective work every day in the lives of the tens of thousands of individuals who have used our programs to gain new skills and build the confidence to reach their goals and explore their potential. As part of a national network committed to building inclusive and learner-centered opportunities, United for Literacy is proud to host this important conversation about the future of adult literacy and lifelong learning in Canada. So before I introduce our wonderful host, I would like to give you just a few housekeeping notes. Alors, premièrement, les panélistes vont s'exprimer en anglais. Donc, si vous souhaitez suivre le webinaire cette discussion en français, s'il vous plaît, cliquez sur le bouton en bas à droite de votre écran, le bouton qui s'intitule Interprétation. Il y a un petit symbole de planète là, ou de globe. Et puis, cliquez sur French, français, et sur Mute Original Audio, mettre l'audio original en sourdine. Alors, j'espère que vous avez bien compris les instructions. On pourrait les mettre, je vais les mettre ensuite dans le chat. And so, as we have live translation today, we will all do our best to speak slowly and clearly. I'm really doing my best here. So following the panel discussion, we will open the forum for a question and answer period. So everyone today has been muted. So if you have a question, please use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. But if you have general comments and you want to chat with your colleagues from across the country, with general comments, please feel free to use the webinar chat. So the forum will conclude at 2:30 p.m. You will notice that we are recording the forum today, but only panelists and the host and myself are being recorded. Participants are not being recorded, so you don't have to worry about that. Okay, so now I think it's now time to extend a very welcome to our host, Sean Henry. Sean is an award-winning journalist, and he's also the host of CBC's Daybreak Montreal. Sean has years of experience as a trusted broadcaster and storyteller, and he creates lasting connections with a diverse array of individuals. From covering major national stories to championing local voices, Sean brings insight, warmth, and energy to every conversation. We are so lucky to have you with us today, Sean. So thank you for being with us. And everyone, please help me to welcome Sean to this conversation. Bienvenue, Sean. Merci d'être avec nous aujourd'hui.
Bonjour, Mélanie. Merci beaucoup. Welcome, everyone. Happy to be here today. And thank you for thinking of me for this. And, Mélanie, you were talking about bridging that literacy gap. And I'm really excited to be part of this and do my part to help bridge that gap. And I know we're going to have some great discussions today. Every year, United for Literacy welcomes leading experts in their field. And this year, we are especially thrilled to welcome this year's group. First, Jen Watt. Jen is a two-spirited Indigenous web developer from Winnipeg and a learner in the United for Literacy's Learn Outside the Box program. Their passion project is creating a virtual map to honor and help find missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls in Manitoba, work they hope to expand across Canada. Jill McRae is an experienced adult literacy instructor with over a decade of service based in Schreiber, Ontario. She leads the literacy initiatives at United for Literacy, designing programs that make a real difference in learner outcomes. Her diverse background in transportation, in logistics, and human resources, and personal support work helps her connect with learners from all walks of life. Ambreen Ahmad is the executive director of the Metro Toronto Movement for Literacy, supporting adult literacy across Toronto and York region. With a background in English literature, education, and leadership, she brings a wide range of experience as a vice principal, HR manager, literacy practitioner, and co-founder of a national tutoring platform. Ambreen is known for her visionary leadership and a deep commitment to community-driven education. Next, we have Janet Lane. Janet is a senior fellow at the Canada West Foundation and a nationally recognized expert in literacy and essential skills. With decades of experience leading programs and research in both the public and private sectors, she focuses on building the skills Canadians need to succeed in a changing workforce. Dr. Lisa Rochman is the Dean of the School of Continuing Education at MacEwan University in Edmonton, where she leads programs in foundational learning, upskilling, and lifelong education. Champion of low barrier, flexible learning pathways, Lisa is also an active member of Edmonton Learning City, Canada's first city to join UNESCO's Global Network of Learning Cities. Thank you, merci to everyone for being here today. Now, let's kick off our discussion by grounding ourselves in what we mean when we talk about adult literacy. What is adult literacy? What is literacy? Now, when we talk about adult literacy today, we mean more than just reading and writing. It's a continuum of skills, including understanding, using, and communicating information in everyday life so people can achieve their goals, develop their potential, and fully participate at home, at work, and in their communities. This definition still resonates today, but in the context of this forum, we're also asking, how does this definition evolve when we think about the future? Jen, I'd love to start with you. What does literacy mean to you personally as a learner and as a developer building tools for your community?
Hi. So I think literacy is important to me because I'd like to help create a foundation for myself as not only a web developer, but a graphic design artist as well. And I found that with learning through literacy, with my teachers and my program, I've been able to learn the tools I need to pass the courses and the exams I need to do in order to create a foundation for myself. And especially through this program, I made some great connections with my teachers as well as other classmates. And yeah, it is helping me further my career as well as build confidence in myself.
Sounds like you found a sense of community at the same time.
Yes, exactly. I really love the community I created and the friends I've made along the way.
Thank you for sharing that. Lisa, could you add to this with how you see literacy changing in the age of AI, digital upskilling, and lifelong learning?
Yeah, so coming from the perspective of continuing education, where we work a lot with employers, with employment, as well as adult upgrading, to me, I see literacy as really multidimensional, evolving, and really foundational to inclusive participation in our more and more AI-influenced world. I think the key skills, the foundational literacy, numeracy, they remain essential. And I don't see anything there changing. They remain the underpinning for a broader set of literacy and skills. So I would highlight digital literacy. And we need digital literacy to be able to find, evaluate, create, and communicate information safely and effectively. And I think digital literacy really helps bridge to AI literacy, which I don't think is optional anymore. It's really about understanding how AI works, using it responsibly, questioning its outputs, and recognizing its social and ethical implications. Today with AI literacy, I don't think it's just about knowing how to use it. It's also knowing what it can do, but when it should do that. And I think that's really an important dimension that we capture with AI literacy. I would even say a precursor to AI literacy is data literacy. And this enables adults to interpret, analyze, communicate, and question information derived from data. And both of these are not just workforce skills, they're really crucial for civic participation and understanding how data affects decisions. If I could even take it a step further, I would go as far as to say algorithmic awareness is becoming a key part of modern literacy. People would benefit if they from understanding that, at least at a conceptual level, that algorithms and not just humans are increasingly influencing what we see, what we buy, how we learn, how we're evaluated. And the boundaries between these areas, they're very porous. And without focusing on the taxonomy, it's really those areas that I think are becoming important as we move forward. And that's what ties to lifelong learning. It's how we're going to keep learning these skills. I don't think we're going to be able to say that the traditional literacy, the ones we're talking about right now, we're not done. It's going to keep changing. And I think that's where lifelong learning really becomes key. Quite honestly, I think if you ask me this question next year, I would add in green literacy or environmental skills as becoming fundamental, but I'm not going to say that yet. I'll save that for another year, but I do think that's the way that we're going.
Lisa, I was nodding as you were speaking, and it's so many different parts of your answer when you're talking about algorithmic awareness. That's something that sat with me, because that's something I don't think we're starting to get familiar with and learn about as well. And as Lisa and Jen said, literacy is evolving with technology, community needs, and lived experience. So let's explore this further with today's discussion questions. First question: in a high-tech, fast-paced world, how do foundational literacy skills still matter? Janet, I'll start with you.
Well, as we've heard already, literacy is a continuum, right? From just being able to pick up a few words from a text, maybe to figure out, which bus you need to catch when, or, how many pills you take at what time. Those kinds of basic information pieces are where we start in the literacy world. But it goes all the way up to being able to develop new knowledge from synthesizing other pieces of knowledge and then adding your own imagination and your own work to it. And so it's a huge continuum. And Lisa's just stressed that that was then, but now we have to go even further. But it still starts with literacy. First, we learn to read, then we read to learn. And we know that kids need to learn to read fluently by the end of grade 3, because when they get into grade 4, they need to be able to read to learn without the teacher always explaining everything to them. They need to be able to read for themselves. And it's not just about decoding, but it's about being able to understand what you've read and apply it in new and different contexts. So in the workforce especially, but in life, as Lisa has been saying, that nothing stays the same anymore. We have to be able to adapt, change, grow. And literacy is that learning to learn skill that gives us the capacity to do that. So in a fast-paced digital world, it's even more important. Just think about using the AI, for instance. ChatGPT is wonderful. It's a great tool. Mind you, if we're not careful, we'll all get dumber if we just use ChatGPT to figure things out. We have to be able to add our human piece to that. And that comes in where we are discerning whether something that we've read is true or not, whether it answers the question that we thought we were asking, whether we can quote this verbatim or whether we have to go and find other pieces to back up what we're learning and or what we're hearing through AI. These kinds of things are all literacy based, being able to understand and apply what you've read. There's nothing more important right now. It's getting harder and harder to find people with those skills. It's getting harder and harder to build those skills in enough at enough of a level to meet the requirements in everyday life and in the workplace. Boy, to think that we could just listen to, or watch videos and just let ChatGPT or other AI take over for us. If we do, we'll lose what's human and what's best about us. And the machines will take over. But but in order to prevent that, we have to increase our literacy skills, not let them be stagnant.
Thank you, Janet. Ambreen, how about you?
Thank you, Sean. So being from the adult literacy world, I want you to think of a door. And when you enter that door, that is the door that leads to learning. And so here's the door. When I talk to a lot of people who are not from the literacy sector, they say, yes, we do believe in lifelong learning. Yes, we do believe people should be advancing because of all these new advancements that are coming in. But they don't understand that that door, that base is literacy. You cannot build a building without that main brick or that first base without laying down those bricks. So when I say literacy, it's like a journey, and lifelong learning is the one that keeps you going. Without foundational literacy skills, it's not just reading and writing. It's you have to read with understanding, you have to write clearly, you have to think critically. These things are very important in the world that we're now advancing. I mean, it was always there. But it's funny how people talk about, oh, tech, AI, yes, we need to. What about those people who weren't given who couldn't build their foundation literacy skills? How do you expect them to progress in today's world when the foundation was not laid? So, I mean, I consider myself illiterate in those things which require skills that I've never used after, let's say I did my master's. You asked me about Keats today. I didn't even develop my right. So if I haven't worked on those skills, I'll forget. So I'll become illiterate. That's what I think about myself. So if you want to access knowledge, foundational literacy skills are very important. And it's easy to say that, just go and learn. I believe in lifelong learning, but do you ever stop and think? And I know the literacy world knows this, but it's when we have our conversations with people who are not from the literacy, we need to make them understand that the foundation needs to be strong in order to compete in this new world, or even in, as Lisa mentioned, the digital world. Jen mentioned the tools. Those tools are provided when you go through the foundational literacy programs, and they cannot be provided if you don't have that.
Thank you, Ambreen. Jill, over to you. How do foundational literacy skills still matter?
Jill, you're muted.
Well, we'll start again. For me, literacy still has a very human component to it. And it's about understanding the stories and expressing ourselves and how we connect with others and in meaningful ways. And no matter how advanced our world gets in technology and how advanced our world becomes, literacy still remains what I call the bridge that connects us all. So having said that, technological changes are constant, but the ability to read and write and think critically, it allows us to keep up and to question and understand the information around us. If we don't have that, then for a high-tech world, for many, it's very difficult because they are not able to communicate, they're not able to comprehend, to understand. With what I do, and probably Ambreen as well, is that every single person is different and individual, and they learn differently. And technology, as we had know, for adults, there's many of us that did not have technology growing up, and so it's all new. And I still work with a lot of those adults that they don't have technology, and depending on where you live, internet isn't available, et cetera, et cetera. So it becomes very overwhelming to many adult individuals, and then they shut down and they don't want to have any part of that world. And so I feel that it's very important that we try at United for Literacy to open those doors and make that world accessible and fun and exciting. And so we try very hard to help them navigate that world at a pace that's best suited for them.
Jen, it sounds like you're saying that people sometimes, if they're not comfortable, they'll shut that door themselves.
Yes.
And keep themselves out. We can continue on that part of the conversation if you want, because the OECD's recent PIAAC report, PIAAC standing for Program for the International Assessment of Adult Competencies, that report shows gaps in Canadian adult literacy and numeracy. And Janet, actually, I'll start with you. What do these results tell us about priorities for the future?
Well, this was done 12 years after the previous international test, and we're finding that the overall, our average skill is no better than it was 12 years ago, even though most people have had some more schooling in that period. We now have 67% of Canadians having post-secondary education. So it just doesn't compute that we would have, we haven't increased our literacy skill over the time period. We do find that we have slightly fewer people at the really lowest level of literacy, but we also have slightly fewer people at the highest level of literacy, which is also, worrying. And numeracy are about the same. We still are not improving our skills. We don't do well. We do pretty well in comparison to the rest of the OECD, but we can't rest on that, because the truth of the matter is our productivity is quite low, and literacy has a huge impact on our productivity. We have employers who can't find people with the level of skill they would need in order to adapt to new technology and to do the research and development that is needed in our economy in order to be the innovators that we need to be. So employers are basically keeping jobs at low skills and low wages relative to what they could be given our education levels. And so what we really need to do is to understand that it's not a lack of technical skill that is causing our problems so much as it is a lack of literacy skill that is causing us not to be able to use technology to its full advantage. And in fact, there are a ton of small and medium enterprises in this country that have not brought in the technology that would make them more efficient. And they have not even thought about adapting to the AI world that would make them more efficient, because they know that their workforce won't deal with it. Now, their workforce needs to be trained, but employers in this country are kind of reluctant to do that. So for the future, it actually means that we're going to have to change how we go about doing things. We're going to have to put the onus less on education and more on skills.
All right. Thank you, Janet. Ambreen, what's your take on this?
I'm just going to start with, it's easy to ignore people or adults who have low literacy skills, lower skills, because, they don't have the confidence to speak out. They're already facing challenges like limited income, or they have other responsibilities. There's transportations, there's, daycare. But the biggest thing is lack of confidence. So I really think that this whole lifelong learning system should have clarity and funded pathways for adults with lower skills. Without structured, accessible routes back to learning, these people will be left out of education, right? And then the next step comes equity. How do we make sure that there's equity? I know our programs, adult literacy programs, do take care that how to include, how to make it more accessible. Then there's a big problem of lack of investments, right? Or funding. I'll just say funding, not investment. Wrong word. So there needs to be better funding for programs that in which they're dealing with adults who have low literacy skills. There needs to be more coordination and community-driven leadership. Because we think one size fits all, right? Indigenous communities, rural people living in the rural area or low income population, it's very local. The program should be made in such a way, or the system should be created in such a way that it has to be very localized, culturally relevant. These things will impact, equity is there. We keep on saying when we talk to programs, they do say that, we have learners, we could have more learners, but there's those wraparound supports that are lacking. It's not the program's fault. It's lack of funding, right? If the programs are properly funded, then they'll be able to cater to that population that is often left out. And then I think the last thing I would like to say is literacy should not be only viewed as a social issue, right? It's an economic, it is economically viable to have literate population, because that does enhance innovation and inclusion. We talk about AI, digital transformation. It's funny, I was talking to someone a few years ago, and they were creating this whole new website for the public. It was a government body. And they said, what are you doing here? How does MTML fit into digital transformation? And simple question, right? And I said, okay, you're creating this whole new website. What are the basic, do you even realize that people may not know how to navigate your website or even read what's there or understand what's there, right? And they said, oh, never thought about it. So maybe we need to, building that awareness, education is always there. But I still can't understand, people don't know the difference between foundational literacy, what literacy is, and what, those technical skills and all that stuff is. So, yeah.
Thank you. Lisa, how about you?
So I think there was a lot of things I took out of PIAAC, and I will skip the ones that Ambreen and Janet have already spoken about so well. But for me, I'd say there were two key things. Is one, coming from continuing education, where we do a lot of workforce upskilling, where we partner a lot within the community, and where we work directly with companies on developing training for them. We just can't always assume that those foundational literacy and numeracy skills are in place and at the level they need to be to advance. So when we're approached about designing the digital, the data, the AI, and other advanced skills, how are we bringing the conversation back? How are we not further marginalizing the communities that are already marginalized by making our training inaccessible to them? If we're starting off our training at those really high advanced skills, how do we make sure we're being inclusive? And I think inclusivity and equity always factor into this discussion. So I'd say that's one, is how are we changing the conversation? And second, for me, a big aspect is moving more towards modular, customizable learning. The world of when we used to kind of front load education. We all start at the same place, we all go through it, we finish it, we're done, and we've all achieved the same things. That's not the world that we're living in today. So I really, when I read these things, I just think about, okay, so where are our on-ramps? Where are the different places people can enter this training, get the support and scaffolding they need to get to that next part? Where are the off ramps? Because we know learning is not always just a continuous thing. People have to exit. Real life happens to adults. So I really think about when we're looking at education, how are we making it more modular? How are we making it more stackable? And then in the same breath, how are we making it more personalized or co-creating it with our learners? So if there are the different modules, can we work with people to let them create their own learning pathway instead of giving them a fixed pathway? I'm not going to take credit for this metaphor because I'm sure I heard it somewhere, but I can't remember where. But the PIAAC reminds me of it because it reminds me that higher education, particularly continuing education, we can look at it like a great, well-developed highway system. Lots of on-ramps, lots of off-ramps, places to pull over, bridges, all of those things, some scaffolding on the side. Like how are we making a system that everyone has a way to enter and people can exit as they need and then come back when they need to? And I think that's what I take away from PIAAC is how are we making sure everybody, well, to continue the metaphor, how can everybody get on the road?
Well, this discussion actually leads into our next set of questions. So what does future ready mean in your specific context, whether it's post-secondary, community-based, or employer-driven programming? Jen, I'll start with you this time.
For me, becoming future ready, I think is building basically the next chapters for my future in my life as well as my family's lives. And with that, I think really working on my education is a main goal because I have a lot of life skills and a life experiences as well as being there for my family. I grew up in northern Manitoba and I helped my grandpa run his business, so I have a lot of business skills as well. But on paper, it doesn't really show that. So I don't have, like my other colleagues, I don't have a high school diploma. I don't have post-secondary education. But with United for Literacy, I'm able to help fill in those gaps for myself. And I've been with United for Literacy for about 9 months now, and I was able to enroll into college. So this year I started my time in Toronto Film School. I'm doing a remote program where I'm in the graphic design diploma program, and I'm hoping to further that into a bachelor's of creative arts. So it's a lot of like set in stone building for my future. And I have a lot of hope for my future as well now. Like before, I didn't really have like, how am I gonna build a future for myself? And I would try to apply for jobs and they would just look at my lack of paper skills. Like, oh, they would overlook who I was. But I have a lot more to my story that people don't know. And I'm hoping to use that mixed with my education to hopefully make a place for myself and my family.
Going back to that idea that one size does not fit all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Lisa, over to you.
Future ready in my context, I mean, we're talking about a labor market and a society that over the next few years is going to be more influenced by automation, AI, shifting priorities, and constant change. And I am careful in my words, and I'm saying influenced by and not driven by. And I do hope that that is the future that we're heading into. And so when we think about the capabilities that we're going to need, what we see from talking to employers, from the research, from talking to our students who are trying to get jobs, is we're really hearing about the blend of capabilities that combine durable skills, technology, and continuous learning. And durable skills are called many different things. They're in my opinion, misnomer as soft skills, because we all know they're very difficult to teach. But it's those types of skills that we see also the human skills and skills for success. And specific technical skills I would never recommend to be future ready because they're going to become obsolete. Whatever I tell you today, next week it's obsolete. And quite honestly, given that I'm reading it today, that means it was published probably a few days ago and the research was done before that. So technical skills will become obsolete. We need to have those foundational AI literacies, data literacies, but we really need those human durable skills. In the future, I think we're going to see more things with agentic AI. So those are AI systems that can do autonomous reasoning, task execution. And so humans are actually going to have to collaborate with AI. And those human skills are going to be critical, that communication, because that is what's going to differentiate us. As AI takes on more routine technical tasks, our capacity to interpret, connect, and make meaning from information, to apply judgment, empathy and ethical reasoning are what machines are not replicating. And the future ready person has to know how to continue to grow. And lifelong learning, there's a mindset aspect to it, but there are skills that you can learn to become a lifelong learner. And I think this is what we're going to have to see more and more of. And lifelong learning, the skills in there, they feed into an entrepreneurial mindset. And I think future skills most definitely includes an entrepreneurial mindset. And when I use entrepreneurial, I don't mean the kind of the past way it was looked at with starting your own business. That's great, go for it. But what I'm talking about more is being adaptable, opportunity seeking, resourceful, and knowing how to learn. And I think, as I said, I think the next thing we're going to be talking about more and more is systems thinking, how we look at things no longer as literacy, but how things interconnect. So when I think of future ready, those are the aspects that I think build into it. But of course, I think Ambreen put it beautifully. If you don't have that door open, you can't get to any of this. And I think that that was really well highlighted. So these are all future skills that we need building on that foundation.
Janet, what does future ready mean to you?
Wow. It's kind of scary, isn't it? Really, that those of us who've, been working in literacy for so long still have to adapt and change and grow to this new kinds of literacies that are needed. And how do the learners who are just getting started on that learning journey even cope to think about getting that far ahead? It's interesting. Just as an aside, in Africa, they're moving to learning on their phones rather than in buildings because they've got so many young people, and they're learning through AI on their phones. So there's all kinds of things going on that in the future, but it still comes back to being able to learn to read, and then to use reading as your way to keep learning. All the other skills that you build on that foundational skill of reading, if you want to learn quickly and fluidly. And so obviously we need to make sure that children are reading well by the end of grade 3. I mentioned that. Corrine in the audience mentioned that too many children are leaving grade 3 without that. So we still, we need to keep pushing for children in school. We need to make sure that kids coming out of our high schools and going into post-secondaries have those skills. At least 25% of graduation, kids that have graduated from high school don't have the skills they need to really learn well when they go into post-secondary. So these are basic pushes that we need to make on our elementary and secondary systems. And then obviously at our post-secondary level, we have to incorporate the literacy into the other learning that is going on, so that people are actually improving their literacy skills while they're trying to learn other skills in other contexts. But I still say that the biggest piece is going to have to be in the workplace. We have millions of people in the workplace in this country with skills that are slightly lower or even a lot lower than the ones they need to do their jobs really well. So employers are going to have to be much more involved with that. And they can do that too by incorporating literacy and numeracy into the other training that they're doing. It takes effort, but if we can get people to start doing that, then we can actually start to increase our skills in our workforce and be more productive. But also, as the learners on the call have said, it's how you actually get through life, right? So it's for living, learning, and working.
Thank you, Janet. Let's continue this conversation with some of the obstacles people may face along the way. And the next question is, how can learning opportunities be made more reliable for adults with unstable schedules, for example, or life circumstances? And what approaches keeps those with very low literacy engaged over time? Jill, I'll start with you.
So I live in a rural, remote area. And so I experience a lot of barriers on a daily basis with my learners. So I've had to navigate those. And I think the key thing is sorry, my programs are different programs. You know, the Toronto programs, we might be running sort of the same, but mine are different because of my area, the demographics and the geographics of my area. We have terrible internet services. We don't have taxi services. We don't have daycare. We don't have, so these things all affect what we do. And they affect my learners. So I think each learner I have to evaluate individually. And sometimes we do, before we even build a program, sometimes we meet for 2 or 3 weeks and we just have one-on-one talks. I get to know them, they get to know me. I'm trying to create a safe environment for them, one that they feel comfortable with me, I will feel comfortable with them. Finding out whether they do well in large groups, small groups, how they feel. Are they at this time employed? Do they have volunteer things that they do? So that I can tailor what we're going to do specifically to them and hopefully develop a program that they are part of. I want their input. You know, if they don't like big environments, then we're not going to do a group thing. You know, if they would prefer, you know, maybe they work part-time or full-time, maybe we need evening classes. Every single thing we do, it's their input to how we will continue to the next step. And recognizing, and then as we're doing it, the key to me is recognizing every step, every achievement they do to keep them coming back. I want them to come back. So I want them to feel proud of what they're doing and safe, and feel that coming back is what they want to do and share maybe with their family and friends. And I want them to feel supported by us. So it's important that they have a big say in their learning journey with me. I want them to have confidence in what they're doing. And so we create that together. And by doing so, we create a program and an environment that is best, it's individualized for them. And that way they, you know, I don't judge them. If they're, you know, their achievements, I celebrate every achievement that they do. You know, we want to make sure that they feel good. And we, sorry, I'm just trying to think of the word. I understand that sometimes life for them can get in the way. So we don't judge, you know, if they need a bit of a break, they need a break. I encourage them to come back to the program. It's just different, you know, when you're in different environments, where you have several barriers and lack of, many of my clients don't even have laptops or things to help them. So, we offer that as well. So we're dealing with different circumstances. And what we want to do is make sure those circumstances, I don't want them to focus on that. I want to be able to give them, or United for Literacy wants to be able to give them all the opportunities that they deserve. So we don't want them to focus on what they don't have or can't do. We want to be able to provide an environment, at their pace with what they can do and celebrate all those moments with them.
Thank you. Jen, what are some solutions?
I think even before like the first barrier of unstable schedules, I think, at least personally, a lot of adult Indigenous learners, we struggle with a lot of intergenerational trauma, personal traumas, and there's a disconnect with like trusting education, trusting teachers, and trusting the space of being in a classroom. And there's a lot of like marginalized fear with that. And at least for me, it did hold me back from school. And due to racism, sadly, I did decide to drop out of high school a couple of times. And I ended up going back to school when I was on reserve. And I did have a better time learning, and I managed to finish my grade 9. But because there is such a lack of support systems up north, I wasn't able to finish my grade 12. So I put that on hold until I moved to the city years later. And with that, I had to deal with a lot of personal demons. I took time from my education and I worked through therapy, and I did trauma therapy as well. But with that, there's a lot of opportunities my people can't really have to deal with these traumas, to deal with these fears. So I think with reconciliation, especially having non-Indigenous people come together with Indigenous communities in finding that trust again, in realizing that we can not forget our past, but rewrite our futures and hopefully create a safer space for the younger generations who have that fear of going to school, who have that fear of wondering, is this teacher going to be safe for me, who won't judge me for what I want to learn, like who won't call me stupid, or who won't call me names, who won't call my parents savages. And that was something I did deal with in public school in Winnipeg, and it held me back. But now I dealt with my hurt, my pain, and my teachers at the program at United for Literacy. I feel such a safe space with them. I can be who I am. I can be myself. I can wear my skin proudly, and I can be a Native, two-spirited person who wants to further my education. And I'm hoping that my classmates, my friends, my siblings, my cousins, they'll have that. Right now, my cousin, she's finally going back to school at 35. And I'm hoping she'll graduate this year. She'll get her high school too with me. And yeah, I hope my nieces will have such a better experience going into public school in the city. Because besides the little bit racism from my teachers, I love my classmates. I love learning about the diversity and experiencing other cultures. And I loved learning. So I'm hoping that the younger generations don't have to experience that hurt, that they can thrive just like I am.
Jen, thank you so much for sharing that. Ambreen, I'll come to you now.
Thanks. Just wanted to say, Jen, beautiful. It's just awe-inspiring. So I remember I am from the literacy, from the education field since the past many years. But what drew me to literacy was how learner-centered they are. They meet people where they are. I know when I think of reliable, four words come to my mind: flexibility, trust, relevance, and dignity. I think they're already being implemented in our programs. But the only thing is, there are new emerging challenges coming up. There are all these unstable schedules because of, unstable work or different demands of housing or food insecurity. These are, increasing. So when we talk about flexibility, which are, again, our programs are very flexible. When you meet a person where they are, the trust builds up slowly. And it's from the intake till they've not completed, they reach their goals. Trust comes when you make them realize they are humans, right? We are running after employment and studying and studying and studying. Where's the human factor? Our programs bring that. So, when that's there, adults who have unstable schedules or life circumstances, they do find a vent out, or they find that connection in our programs. We were doing a podcast with a few learners last year, and each one of them, besides talking about the reading that they learned, the writing that they learned, they said, I met this person and I'm not lonely anymore. Right? So those even human values, compassion, empathy, it is already provided by our programs. But I think we just need to be where it's about approaches. I think it needs to continue because challenges are changing. We're running after, okay, learn AI, improve your skills, right? But we're leaving out that human factor. What of those people who did not have a chance to learn, right? And this is what our programs do, that making them believe that they can succeed. And I totally agree with you, Jen. When I spoke to a few learners, they said, I felt so dumb before coming into the literacy program. And if you just for a moment, I can't even absorb that because it's so powerful, right? So that's what our programs need to do. You have to empower people that continue. We are already doing a great job, but it's just that we have to be more mindful. Situations are changing. We do go for authentic, real life situations, right, that have to be included in our programs. But maybe those are changing. How will our programs catch up with that in order to deal with such individuals, right? So again, trust. Everything comes if the basics are there. Trust, compassion, and relevance is there, which our programs are already doing. I'm a big fan of our adult literacy programs. They're already doing that, but it has to be looked at from a different perspective in order to manage what's changing in the new world.
All right. Thank you very much, Ambreen. We're coming up to the end of this portion of the forum. We have a few more questions, so we're going to ask our speakers to keep their answers a little shorter going forward, because next we're going to move to the question and answer part of the forum. That's not my questions. We have everyone else participating. But I did have a question starting with Jen. How can we make sure learners themselves have a voice in shaping literacy programs that affect them?
I think first and foremost is including the students themselves in discussions about forming programs. Like like I said, a part of the Unite for Literacy, we're doing the cake intensive. So we have about 5 weeks to learn the major subjects. And with my teachers, they had asked us how did we want to learn and how did we want our schedule to go. And Sunny and Mona, they adapted our learning to like our needs, and they asked us personally, like, what are your struggles? What do you think you need to work on? And just approaching the students and creating a safe space, asking them, like, what do you feel like you struggle with, and adapting your classes around the students instead of just it all being textbook. Because if you're doing like a list in the schedule, kids are going to get confused. Adult learners are going to get confused.
Thank you. Jill, over to you.
Sorry. Yeah, I think sorry, to your point, Jen, I totally agree with everything you say. It's involving the learner. It's so important to listen to that learner, to understand what they're there for. And that may take, it may take 2 or 3 sessions with that learner to really understand them and get a feel for how we can help them. And I'm also going to quote, I just love this quote. It's important that we become co-authors of their journey. So we both want to be part of our learner's journey. And it's really important that we do that and that we listen and that maybe at some point we have learners that have gone on and they've become volunteers, they've become interns, and they love the journey so much in the end that they also want to become mentors in the end, and they want to help people. And so that's such a positive outcome. I think for me, when I'm talking to a lot of my learners that I want their input on everything. I want, if we're doing a digital program, as Jen said, it's not textbook. So every digital program I run, it's different. It's different for this person, that person, because everybody works at a different rate. They want something different from that program. So we have to listen. It's so important that we listen and that we create activities that reflect that person and who they are. And we have to involve different interests and cultures and life experiences into these programs. And once we do, their input, our learners' input, is invaluable to these programs. And I ask all the time, how are you feeling? Is there anything that we would do differently? And I love listening to what they have to say because it helps us sort of plan for our future with that program and how we might change things. And every learner has a voice, and it's a fantastic way of not standardizing every program we do, making it different. And so for me, participation from a learner through whether it's a survey at the end, just talking to them, reflecting with them, is so important as we continue forward with our programs.
Thank you. Janet?
There's a global movement towards open learning and recognizing learning no matter, wherever it has happened. And so I think that this is really going to be helpful in the space of literacy learning. And with AI, there's now the capacity to gear the learning to exactly where you're at, what you are ready to learn next, and in the context of that is interesting to that learner. I'm not saying that we don't need learning practitioners like Jill and Ambreen to be as the coach for the learner, but the hard work of personalizing each individual learner's learning to where they're at cognitively and also in their lives and what is relevant to them, that can be taken to some extent by AI, and then the learning practitioner becomes the coach, because nobody can do this on their own. We learn in community. But I do think that between open learning and being able to recognize learning wherever it happens, and also this AI-assisted learning, I think we've got some things that we can look forward to in the future.
Thank you. A couple more questions before we move to the question and answer portion of the forum. So we've talked a lot in the last hour. We've talked about the fact that one size doesn't fit all. And we've also talked about, from what I understand, from what everyone's saying so far, that it is definitely a team effort. So Lisa, I'll start with you. What are some examples of successful partnerships across sectors that have improved for adult learners?
I would highlight one to keep it brief. And I think for that one, I would talk about how Edmonton is an UNESCO designated learning city. So in 2022, Edmonton became North America's first UNESCO recognized city, and it joined the global network of learning cities. But this didn't start in 2022. This was actually the recognition of work Edmonton had been doing for over a decade, because in 2010, City Council declared Edmonton a city of learners, which was its way of signaling the commitment to lifelong learning. And they developed which later led to the Community Learning Action Plan. But what was great about this is it wasn't one organization leading, championing, and pushing this. It was really it was the city, it was school boards, it was post-secondary institutes, it was community organizations. And this coalition-based model and not one organization-led makes it much more resilient and inclusive. And there are so many learning opportunities in Edmonton. Of course, we have many post-secondary institutes, but there's a lot of informal and other non-formal learning that takes place. If you go into some of our libraries, you're going to see this as a community learning hub. They will have digital literacy classes, they'll have ESL, financial literacy. I've seen cooking classes taking place at our library, and it's set up to be able to do that. Every month we have a month it's October actually, which is now, and it celebrates the learning that's happening in our city, and it showcases it. So when I think about successful models, I really like that Edmonton has a coalition approach and dedication and is vocal in what it's doing. It's really easy to write something in a report or on a website about what you're going to do. That's really fun and easy. But the reality comes when you actually have to do it. And I think we see in Edmonton that focus on actually doing it. And we've been seeing that growing and growing over the last decade.
Thank you. Jill, how about you?
So for me, I know my examples are a bit different, and they tend to be a little more on a personal level. But my partnerships are very much community based, and coming from a small community, and I do cover 3 small communities. We have the best community partners ever, and they are so excited and so on board to help me anytime I ask for any kind of support. So my stories are a little bit more on a personal note, but one that stands out in particular is it's a dealership up here, and one of the most amazing things that they asked of us is that they have a lot of newcomers that are employed by them. And they reached out because they knew I was running some ESL programs and asked if I would run an ESL program for their newcomers that they've employed. The most amazing thing in this partnership is that they are paying the newcomers while they sit with me for a few hours a week to take the course so that they don't lose pay. They see the value added for them and for them personally and for them on a business standpoint as well, where they can communicate with the customers and everything. So they pay these lovely, right now they're men, to sit with me for a few hours a week. And I just think that's the most amazing thing. And what it does is it's truly like an example of what community support is and partnerships. So, we provide a service. They're making sure that their employees don't lose any pay. So it's more so that we want them to take this course. If they felt that they couldn't support their family because they would lose 2 hours pay, they wouldn't take these courses, right? Or they wouldn't take these programs. So they attend with me, and these courses are built, like these relationships are built on trust, a shared purpose that we have, and together we're transforming lives. I mean, that's one example. I have so many examples because they're on a community level, but I won't go on. But this one stands out in particular just because of the value, just that this business recognizes how important literacy and language and learning English is, and so much so that they support us by paying their employees to sit with me. And I think that's just an unbelievable success, and that together we are both investing in these people, these newcomers to Canada, and it's really, really nice. So that's kind of my story for, like I said, it's on a bit more of a personal level because of the small communities, but we have partnerships with schools, libraries, and individual businesses that support us each and every day with everything we do.
Thank you, Jill. Ambreen?
I would just like to start with one thing, that it's very easy to partner with adult literacy programs, because wherever you want to make a difference in a person's life, that's what we do. We're going to jump in. I'm going to talk about 3 examples, actually. We're trying to make it short. And it's amazing that we connect success to jobs and training, right? So currently we have, it's Building Up, which is a nonprofit social enterprise and training, where they're related to the construction industry. So they provide long-term career pathways for people who face barriers in finding employment. They have this 16-week program, and there is 8 weeks of upgrading for math skills and workplace communication skills is done by Toronto Catholic District School Board. So that partnership is so successful. It's been going on since years and is still continuing. The other one is, and it's again, now the rest of the examples are in the past. So Tropicana's auto body and collision damage repair pre-apprenticeship program. They're the ones that were working in partnership with TDSB, the Toronto District School Board, for 7 weeks of upgrading focused on math and workplace English skills that is required for that level 1 apprenticeship training. That I don't know why the funding ended. Again, my point is always about funding, but that partnership was great. And I do want to mention another partnership, which I think was one of the best ones. It was PMP Workers Action Center. So I wasn't around, honestly. It was way back in 2008. I was probably not even in Canada. When I talked to people who were involved in the project, it built foundational skills training and adjusted employment services for workers who were laid off after a sudden closure of progressive molded products in 2008. So it was a 3-year project. And who was involved? Partners, education providers, literacy, right? 5 employment service providers, laid off PMP workers. Their role was so important because the peer support came from them. Then there were the Canadian auto workers who were the employers, and many people from the government. It's so important to mention, it's a team effort. You want things to improve, you want partnerships to improve, it's a team effort. So that project that went on, 489 workers who were there at the intake, all of them completed the program. Isn't that just simply amazing? And if you want to listen to more, we do have a podcast. I may go to our website, listen to that podcast, but it was a perfect example of partnership. Yeah.
Ambreen, stay with us for a second, because now we're moving into the question and answer portion of this forum. Questions that are not for me, questions that are coming from the participants. And you mentioned something about programs and programs ending. And so one of the questions that we're getting from one of the participants is, looking forward, what key actions should Canada prioritize to scale adult literacy programming effectively across regions? And this is, I'll start with Ambreen, but we'll go around our speakers. Go ahead.
Funding is the biggest thing. Funding is the biggest thing. We need proper, consistent core funding to continue with what we're already doing, and to serve more people. Second, I think if you look across Canada, there's so many programs, so many networks that are doing amazing work. They're working in silos, right? I mean, now, yes, efforts are being made. I know Unite for Literacy and ABC Life Literacy, we started this national alliance, and which is great. But I think we need to collaborate, be more united, work together, spread out the word together. Collaboration is very important. Sustainability comes only when we're united. We raise a voice together. So yeah, did I cover that? I just get emotional when I talk about adult literacy.
That's fine. Janet, over to you.
Well, I can't stress enough the importance of funding, but targeted funding that actually is directed to the people who know what they're doing. There has been a gazillion dollars spent on literacy programming that has not necessarily made the difference that it needs to make. And often with government funding as well, it's like we want something new and sexy. We don't want something that you've been doing that's been working for the last 10 years. So, like we need to have targeted funding that actually gets the work done. I think that making that, incorporating some of the new technologies that can really help learners. Now, granted, you have to have the capacity within your program to provide the technology. But if we use technology well and train practitioners in being the coach as well, I think that then we've got the chance to make things work. And then the key thing is to make workplace literacy much more important.
Lisa?
Well, I think a key one is always going to be funding. It has to not just be project-based and episodic. It has to be stable, and it can't just be on the backs of the learners to pay for it. Along the same lines, it's also funding for educators themselves. As the new technologies are coming in and as things are changing, we can't expect these instructors to go and get them self-trained, be paying for that. So how are we getting them trained so they can train others? And what's the system and the funding that will allow us to do that without them having to pay for that and potentially opting not to do it? And then those learners don't get that option either.
Jen, over to you, then Jill.
I agree with everyone. Like, funding is the main important thing, because without funding, there'll be no programs. Not only that, reaching out to people, getting volunteer work, and hopefully, like, for me, I'm hoping to volunteer when I'm done graduating. I hope to give back to my community as well.
So I absolutely agree with funding, and I do love the idea as well as I think training for all the instructors and managers and people that every day work in this environment. But I also think maybe just a bit more on a personal note, I look to one day see a system that adapts to the people, to the learners, rather than trying to have the learners adapt to a pre-existing program or system that we think works. As has been mentioned many times, right across Canada, we have different areas and different things. And this one program here doesn't mean it will work there. So I believe that our focus has to be on more people-focused, and maybe I scribbled these notes down, but where it can be built on the culture of learning. I mean, not to sound, but rooted in kindness, patience, and understanding. And I think that if we can do these three things, where everybody has a chance to be seen and heard, I think we are empowering our learners to write their own future.
Jill, I'll stay with you, and we're going to move through the questions. So we're going to ask everyone to be as brief as possible in your answers. I know you have things you want to say, but if we're just so we get through some more of the questions. You've all somewhat answered this question, but I want to go a little deeper if we could. So the question is, what strategies have been most effective in fostering collaboration between employers, literacy practitioners, and government to make sure programs meet workforce needs? Jill?
I do, for my level within my communities, I do a lot of outreach, and so information sessions with workplaces and partners that I'm hoping to have. So I give them as much information as I can about United for Literacy, foundational skills, workplace, the value of workplace. We run certain seminars with soft skills and different things, and we educate our employers about the importance of all our programs. And so at my level, it's more of an outreach and a consistency of educating the towns that I work with on the importance of literacy. And we offer, what we try to do is gear courses or programs, that will help and enable our adult learners to get back into the workforce. We help with resumes and things. We were part of an action center not long ago that was helping get people back into the workforce due to a big mill shutdown. So for us, it's having our finger on the pulse of everything that's happening around us, and hopefully, once we see an opportunity where our skill set can come into play, we like to try and jump in and see where we can assist and improve literacy in that area for this group of people.
All right, thank you, Ambreen.
So personally, I think that is very difficult. I like making noise. That's what I say. The more people I talk to, be it employers, be it other stakeholders, I'll just be very polite. Other stakeholders, they don't think of literacy as the go-to for upgrading skills, right? Constant reminders, sure. Finding a champion in those is very crucial, I think, because there has to be someone who agrees with you. They agree. I was at a conference last week, and I was talking to some people, and they said, "Oh, we totally agree. Adult literacy, blah, blah, blah." I said, "Sure, when we're talking, everybody agrees. But when it comes to collaboration, that's where the problem happens." So I think it's a continuous... it's sad. That's what I've seen in these 5 years that I've been at MTML. We have to be persistent in our message. We have to be united in our message. And, if the sector is standing together and saying the same message, it's okay to ask for help from others, to ask for support, right? Ask others what they're doing and find champions.
Thank you. Here's another question, and Janet, I'll go to you for this one. So the question is, how can we support individuals who are still developing their literacy skills and have a lack of confidence in their learning ability to make sure they see the importance, develop the skills, and have the resilience to continue? The person who asked this question says, it's hard to change throughout the process of being capable, makes sense. Many avoid or rely on AI and don't benefit of developing these skills. So what are your thoughts on that?
I think it's important to, as Jill and Ambreen have said so well, to meet the learners where they're at. So it's no use trying to teach somebody something that isn't relevant to them in the moment. And it depends on the learner, what that is. So it's so important to work with the learner and figure out what they want to learn, but also what their situation in life is and what they need to learn, and then find the way to make that fit. If they are in the workplace, it would be helpful to know what the employer needs them to learn so that it's relevant. This is basic adult education piece to encourage that the learning fits the needs, rather than going in with a saying to a learner, we've got a program for you that doesn't actually meet their needs. And I think that is the key. And then as again, Jill has said this, I think very clearly, that baby steps. Every time you succeed in something, you need to be congratulated for that, so that you build, because confidence builds on success. And that takes a lot of time on the part of the practitioner, right? So to spend that time with the learners. So we need to also understand that everybody's going to be working at their own pace, and you can't expect to put a whole bunch of learners in a classroom and have them all come out having learned what was on the curriculum, right? It's individual.
Right. Lisa, how about you?
Well, I would really add on to what I was saying before about modularity and what Janet is saying. It's about those milestones. How are we celebrating each step that they're accomplishing? So for me, I would say it's about milestones. It's about making sure it's about applying skills in real life situations. And as Jen talked about earlier, building those peer networks. Instructors are great and they're crucial, but how do we also build that peer network to surround people and support people?
Thank you. Jen, over to you.
Sorry, did you say me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I think kind of what Lisa said, like creating community and connecting with my classmates has been like one of the main things that helped me increase my confidence. So when I first started the programs, I was really shy and I kept to myself, but now I feel inspired by my classmates to keep doing what I want to do and hopefully help make a change within my community. And my classmates also want to help me create my projects as well, because I have an idea to create a map for MMIW, and I was building a map for Manitoba, but now I have some classmates across Canada who also want to help me expand this map and expand this database. So it's about inspiring each other.
Thank you, Jen. And with that, that concludes our United for Literacy National Annual Forum on Literacy and Future Ready Skills, the journey from foundational literacy to new opportunities for adult learners in the Canadian workforce. We had a lot more questions, but unfortunately, we ran out of time. On a plus assez de temps pour toutes les questions, mais merci quand même. Thank you to Jen Watt, Jill McRae, Ambreen Ahmad, Janet Lane, and Dr. Lisa Rochman. Thank you to Mélanie Valcin and the team for hosting this forum, and to those who helped make sure everything ran smoothly this afternoon. And of course, thank all of you for participating today. Merci beaucoup pour votre participation. Have a great day. Bonne journée.